It is ridiculous and it is against the laws of nature that we can have somebody sitting pretty who takes home more money than the credible entrepreneur who is doing actual production of goods and services.
We always say it as it is.
It is only in this country that when a thief is arrested, you hear elders from their tribe saying, he is our son and he is our thief.
If you are deviant
Yes.
and I call you leader, probably you are already a leader, but you are leading in the wrong direction.
We want to see the role of the youth
Yeah.
in the security,
Yes.
governance,
Yes.
and development.
The youth that I meet and work with here, you know, we call them the millennials and X's and Y's, this and that. They don't necessarily want to live like their fathers and grandfathers,
Yes.
do business like their fathers and grandfathers. They're more independent, they're better educated, and they're the ones that are making everything move in this region.
We look at the issues, we talk about issues that impact people's lives in Africa.
The African peoples themselves continue to cheer bad leaders, and because they cheer them on, they continue to be misled.
Let me ask you, doctor, would you rather be somebody who does not enjoy so much freedom but you are rich?
Yes.
Or you'd rather be poor who you are actually imprisoned by the poverty itself?
My goal is not to come here and say, I want the majority ownership, I want to own this, I want to own that, I want to do this. My goal is we all make money and we're all happy, and I help build a big business here.
Punchline is for Africa, with Africa, from Africa.
Very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining me this wonderful afternoon. Just a few minutes past 3 p.m. here in Nairobi, East African time. My name is Miriam Mugotu, and the show is Diaspora Dispatches, where we get to look at the news-making headlines across the continent. Thank you so much wherever you're tuned in this afternoon. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you're watching us today. We start with some news from Sudan, and Sudan's ousted long-serving leader Omar al-Bashir has gone on trial in the capital Khartoum in connection with the military coup that brought him to power more than 3 decades ago. The 76-year-old, who has already been convicted for corruption, could face the death penalty if found guilty over his role in the 1989 coup. More than 20 former officials are on trial alongside Bashir, and of course Bashir was forced out of power in 2019 following popular protest there. The civilian uprising started in late 2018 with demonstrations, but quickly morphed into a call to end President Bashir's rule. And we shall look at that in a short bit, just more details, and understand why is it that President Omar al-Bashir is facing these charges right now, and what really happened in 1989. And so we move to South Africa, and where South Africa's Labour Minister Tembelani says he has been admitted to hospital after testing positive for COVID-19 almost a week ago. That is according to a government statement. He had been in self-quarantine at home. He was transferred to hospital on Monday night on the advice of his doctor. The statement has said Mr. Ksesi is the second cabinet minister to be hospitalized. Energy Minister Gwede Mantashe was admitted to hospital on Monday after also testing positive for COVID-19. South Africa has the highest number of confirmed cases in the continent. About 360,000 cases have been reported, with over 5,000 deaths so far. And then we come back to the East Africa and we head over to Tanzania. And Tanzania's President John Pombe Magufuli has for the second time declared the country to be coronavirus free. He told a gathering at his official residence in the capital Dodoma on Monday that God had heard the prayers of citizens. Now, President urged tourists to visit the country and gave an assurance that they will return to their home countries healthy. And all right, still in Tanzania now, after in regards to also coronavirus, after Tanzanian President John Magufuli declared the country free from COVID-19, the government has now issued new guidelines for obtaining coronavirus clearance certificates. Now, the certificates will be available to both citizens and foreigners living in the country who plan to travel to countries where the documents are required. According to a statement issued by Minister for Health, Umi Mwalimu, the fee for screening is about $17 US dollars there, and also that is for Tanzanians, and for non-locals you'll pay about $25 US dollars there for foreigners who are residents, and $100 US dollars for visitors in the country. In a statement released to the media, she said the travelers who have COVID-19 clearance certificate will only be seen to be legal after it is stamped and verified electronically. And then we cross over to Mali, where Mali opposition has stopped demonstrations to allow people to celebrate upcoming Eid festival. The AFP news agency has reported. The agency reports that an opposition figure, Nuhon Sa, said they had decided to observe a truce on the subject of civil disobedience. Eid al-Adha will be marked at the end of the month. It remembers the Prophet Ibrahim's willingness to sacrifice his son when ordered by Allah. 3 West African heads of state are meeting in Mali to mediate on the country's political crisis. The opposition wants President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta to resign, saying he has failed to address jihadist violence, corruption, and Mali's economic challenges. All right, and then we move to some warning from the World Health Organization. And now the World Health Organization has warned of rising coronavirus cases in sub-Saharan Africa. The WHO said there was a continued acceleration of COVID-19 transmission. The organization's emergency chief, Michael Ryan, said that what is seen to be happening in South Africa may unfortunately be a precursor and a warning for what will happen for the rest of Africa. He's quoted to be saying, like, while South Africa is experiencing a very, very severe event, he thinks it is really a marker of what the continent could face if urgent action is not taken to provide further support. Now, the World Health Organization said cases in South Africa have increased by 30% in the past week. Kenya, of course, has increased by 31%, Madagascar by 50%, Zambia by 57%, and Namibia by 69%. Africa have reported about 507,223 confirmed COVID-19 cases, including 9,691 deaths so far. This is by Monday, according to World Health Organization statistics. And then we move to Egypt, where Parliament in Egypt has voted to authorize the deployment of its military abroad to defend national security and, in its words, fight criminals and foreign terrorists on the Western Front. Now, it is an apparent reference to the neighboring Libya, where Egypt has been supporting the renegade General Khalifa Haftar, who has been forced back from positions around the capital Tripoli. Now, the resolution came despite a phone call between Egyptian leader Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and President Trump, who is reported to have asked that nothing be done to escalate the situation in Libya. Last week, the pro-Haftar parliament in eastern Libya moved towards inviting the intervention of Egyptian troops, which have not fought abroad in nearly 30 years, and I was just hoping it will stay like that. We don't need any more fires here in the continent, as we keep saying. We have enough going on already. And then still on the matters of Nile River, that is now bringing a lot of problems there and causing Egypt to want to send its troops Libya is a different, but this is a different matter that Egypt is also dealing with, another crisis, and that is the Nile River. And African leaders are expected to sit down on Tuesday for a virtual meeting about Ethiopia's controversial mega dam across the Blue Nile. It comes after recent talks between Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt ended without a deal. Ethiopia hopes the dam will bring electricity to tens of millions of its people currently living without access to regular power. But Egypt, which gets most of its fresh water from the Nile, is concerned that it will threaten its water supply. The current effort by the African Union has not yet reached a settlement, but the head of state, including South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, will see if any progress has been made and whether there are new paths to pursue. And we go to Zimbabwe. Police in Zimbabwe have confirmed the arrest of two men, Chinono and Garivume, stating that the action was in connection with allegations of contravening Section 187, subsection 1, as read in the Section 37 of the criminal law in Zimbabwe, that states incitement to participate in public violence. Now, it is not clear that the call for protest in July 31st is the reason for the arrest. Zimbabwe has routinely deployed heavy police presence to scuttle planned protest. Chinono was behind the recent expose of alleged COVID-19 procurement fraud involving the now sacked Health Minister Obadiah Moyo. Moyo is currently in court facing corruption charges. So this Chinono person is a journalist there in Zimbabwe, and recently he did an investigative piece that brought out, the rot in the Ministry of Health there in Zimbabwe's government. Matter of fact, President Mnangagwa went ahead to have this person to sack this minister. But now the journalist who did the expose and brought out the information that led to the sacking of this minister, now he's being taken to court for inciting violence. I'm confused there. I thought the government should have even given him a recommendation, a heads of state recommendation or something like that. But now he's been arrested and he's being charged incitement to participate in public violence. They were planning, I think, for a protest on July 31st, and there you go. But it is through the investigative piece that he did that President Mnangagwa was able to fire this health minister, and now the journalist is in problem. Alrighty, now we go to the DRC, where Ebola cases in the Western Democratic Republic of Congo have risen to 60, with funerals a particular concern for the spread of the disease, the World Health Organization has said. World Health Organization emergencies expert Mike Ryan said another 3 cases were detected at the weekend, making a total of 56 confirmed and 4 probable infections in an outbreak announced last month in the DRC's Equateur province. And then we go to Nigeria, and please pay attention. Very interesting things happening here in Nigeria. Now, a Nigerian official collapsed on live television while answering questions from lawmakers over mismanagement of funds allocated to a development commission in the country's oil-rich region. Daniel Pondey, the acting managing director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, slumped forward in his chair less than an hour into his session in front of a committee in the House of Representatives there in Nigeria. Following his collapse, several officials in the room went to his aid, one trying to prevent him from possibly choking, others were fanning him, while others poured water over his head. He regained consciousness and was seen talking with some of his rescuers. Now, the committee eventually hurriedly dismissed him, as some members were heard asking that an ambulance be called in. He was helped out of the auditorium with the aid of a policeman and 2 other men. Now, the NDDC has been the subject of the massive mismanagement reports in the recent weeks. The management, however, insists that all expenditure were justified, including a sizable sum for COVID-19. Now, President Buhari last week commented on the reports, stressing that his government will do all it takes to uproot saboteurs of development in the region. Now, this person, he's the managing director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, and he appeared before Parliament to answer to some of these queries, claims about corruption and financial mismanagement in this very important, docket. And when he got there, just a few minutes during this questioning, he collapsed in his seat. Okay. All right, you tell me what you think, but we shall come back later and let you know what I think about this. And then we head back to Tanzania, where Tanzanians will go to the polls to vote in a presidential and local election on October 28th. The Electoral Commission has announced the National Electoral Commission Chairman, Semistokos Kaijage, also announced in Dar es Salaam on Tuesday that campaigns for both the presidential and parliamentary elections will run for 2 months, ending on the eve of the 2020 general elections. And then we go to South Sudan, where more than 1,000 civilians have been displaced as a result of clashes between government forces and the opposition forces in Lira, county of Central Equatoria State, according to the former commissioner of Lira County. The fighting between the SSPDF and the National Salvation Front reportedly took place in Lyria and Lobonok counties. And these are just the latest figures. Remember, yesterday we had nearly a similar conversation, and there has been a concern over the increase of intercommunal fighting and clashes there in South Sudan. And now we see this is another news item. And now more than 1,000 civilians have been displaced. So we have internally displaced IDPs there. In South Sudan, and every waking day these are cases that now have become very, like they're treating it like it's normal there in South Sudan. Still staying with South Sudan, and 2 High Court employees were on Monday held at gunpoint and threatened with death by senior National Security Service officer in Juba. The incident involving a brigadier general of the National Security Service and officials working as chief registrars took place right at the court premises. Hold on. Now listen. According to the police, the general, who has been identified as Gum Agok, stormed into the office of the Registrar of Land and ordered that his name be recognized as the owner of the disputed land in Juba. Okay. Now, Gum's security guards reportedly held a gun on the head of the Registrar of Land. Criminal. And then General Gum is claiming ownership of the land at Juba Nabari, an area popularly known as Thongping, near Juba International Airport. But the Registrar of Land reportedly refused to change the title deed without proper documentations and documents to back up Gum's land ownership claims. What level of madness is that? People from South Sudan is one of our viewers here. I don't see him here yet. Perhaps he will come. Maybe not, but what kind of law is that? This is a whole government official going at a government office with a gun, forcing a government staff there to do something that is contrary to the law. If he had proper documentations, you can't hold someone at a gunpoint. That is just it's just unheard of, the things that are happening in South Sudan. And then we end with Cameroon. The leader of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, Maurice Kamto, has called on the Cameroonians to use all pacific means to impede any future elections in the country if the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions is not resolved, as well as the reform of the electoral system. In a statement released last night, Maurice Kamto said these peaceful actions will start beginning with the regional elections, which are supposed to be held soon. Maurice said that Cameroonians both home and abroad should be prepared to take peaceful actions, but warned the forces of law and order will be responsible for any violence. All right, then, so he's saying we're going to go ahead and have a civil disobedience here in Cameroon. So, all right, so that is just the latest news there coming up from different African countries. A very good afternoon to you. Now, can we look at that news from Sudan, where the long-serving and now ousted leader Omar al-Bashir has gone on trial in the capital Khartoum today in connection with the military coup that brought him to power more than 3 decades ago. And of course, the 76-year-old, who has already been convicted for corruption, could face the death penalty if found guilty over his role in the 1989 coup. And him and more than 20 former officials are on trial alongside, of course, him, as I said there earlier. So In 1989, that is when former President Omar al-Bashir came to power. Bashir seized power in a military coup on 30th June against the democratically elected government of Prime Minister Sadek al-Mahdi. Now, along with other officials who served in the government, Bashir accused of having plotted the coup in which the army arrested Sudan's political leaders, suspended parliament, closed the airport, and announced the overthrow on the radio. That sounds like exactly what happened to him last year, except the overthrow, I don't know if it was announced on the radio like that, but hey, that is exactly what happened. What he did coming to power, I guess you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Exactly what happened during this time that led Omar al-Bashir to become the president of Sudan during this coup, and how these events happened. That is just how he left power there, you know. So Bashir, of course, plotted the coup. He suspended parliament, like we saw that happen last year, and also the constitution was suspended. The airport of Sudan was closed, also that happened last year. And of course, he announced the overthrowing of that government that was being led by then Prime Minister Sadek al-Mahdi over the radio, except now it was all over the world because now the news media has really developed. So exactly what happened when he came to power in 1989 through a coup, and he left through a coup there. So former President Omar al-Bashir has started, his case has started over how he came to power, and should this go and be found culpable, of course, I mean, he became the president, so he benefited, so I don't know how they will not find him culpable of this coup. Then the 76-year-old, who has already been convicted for corruption, could face the ultimate death penalty if found guilty over his role in 1989 coup. So if he wasn't the ringleader of these coups, who else was? Because Omar al-Bashir is the person that benefited from this coup that made him the president, and he stayed there for nearly 30 years, in Sudan. So if they don't find him culpable, then surely I don't know what kind of law they'll be using. So now that case has started today. There already he had been, charged and convicted earlier this year on corruption charges, and so these other charges are very dire. And remember, our former president also Omar al-Bashir has a warrant of arrest over his head. I remember the killings that happened in West Darfur when he was the president there. Those are still things that loom over his head, and I've never heard about his family, his wife, his children. I don't know if he has any of that. I've not heard at all. Was he married? Did he have children? What was happening? His private life seems to have remained very private until right now. I don't know any of that, but not that it matters. But there you go. So former President Omar al-Bashir, the sins that he committed for nearly the 30 years he was in power there in Sudan, beginning to catch up with him, and we know that the warrant of arrest that was issued with the ICC some years back has been one of the things that the US has been very keen on seeing, that especially the current leadership in Sudan delivers. They're saying, if you want us to remove Sudan from the list of the countries that are sponsoring terrorism. Remember, Sudan got into that list in the early 90s when they had given a safe haven to Al-Qaeda leader then. What was his name? Osama bin Laden, all right? So Sudan got its name in that list then. So that has really went ahead and affected Sudan's economy, because if you're a country that is on this list, you have been blacklisted as sponsors, or a country that is supporting terrorism, then who would want to come and invest in that country? So that has really seen the economy of South Sudan suffer, and also just foreign investors. You cannot lure them to come and invest in a country that is blacklisted as one of the countries that is supporting terrorism across the world. And also, of course, that has come with a lot of, sanctions that have affected financial bans and things like that have affected the way Sudan trades and, does business with the rest of the world. So as the U.S. has been very keen on having Sudan removed from this list, but they have a couple of conditions. Of course, they've not come out and say it very loudly, but you can see by their suggestions and how they keep bringing up certain matters. And even one of the key things that they wanted was for Sudan to be the country that would, compensate the victims of the 1998 bombings that happened here in Kenya, simultaneously with in Dar es Salaam. Remember, the U.S. embassies were bombed at the same time, and we lost. That is the first time that Kenya ever experienced that magnitude in terms of a terrorist attack in 1998, when terrorism was still a new phenomenon that people were just beginning to understand in the world. And Kenya, we had that. The U.S. embassy was just right in the middle of the CBD, was bombed, and a huge, a lot of people have been affected till today. And we have a memorial plaque that has been erected there. Of course, the U.S. embassy has since moved to another safer area that is far off from where there's a huge, traffic in terms of people. So Sudan was asked to pay. And Sudan agreed to pay in tunes of, I can't remember how much, but it's a lot of money. And we've been wondering, with the kind of economy that Sudan has, will it be able to compensate these victims and the families and the people who suffered in Kenya here and also in Tanzania? So that is just one of the conditions that the U.S. had put in place. But also the other one was for Sudan to hand over Omar al-Bashir to the ICC. And of course, as we know, the way the government of Sudan is constituted now, the transitional government with the protester side and also the military side. Of course, when these things were happening, when these killings were happening, as we've said here time and time again in the Darfur, Omar al-Bashir might not have gone there physically and taken a gun and fired. There had to be some officers on the ground. And unfortunately, some of these officers are still part of the leadership, even right now, of the transitional government there in Sudan, and also still hold very senior positions as army officials there in the government right now in Sudan. So if you expect that they will be willing to hand over Omar al-Bashir to the ICC, I don't know how that will happen, because of course their names will come up. Of course they will be also mentioned, and they will be required to also go there and to be answerable, to some of these charges that Omar al-Bashir is facing there. So that has been, a very tricky situation there. Of course, we've seen Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, just wanting a new kind of leadership there for Sudan, and he came in, and he's been the protesters and majority of Sudanese have looked at him as the person who will bring the change and the reforms that have been long been needed there in Sudan. But his hands are tied right now. He cannot do something without consulting the side of the army, and a lot of times they don't agree. They don't look at things the same way. They don't consider or deliberate things the same way, so that has become a bone of contention every time, especially when it comes to making certain decisions. So we saw even earlier in the year, one of the leadership there in the protest side, in the civilian side, came out and said, we might consider just handing over Omar al-Bashir to the ICC. And then that was that. We never heard of that story again. I remember us talking about it here. So it's not really possible, because should they hand over Omar al-Bashir to the ICC? Maybe one time they will do it, but I'm not quite sure if that is something that is on the offing right now. Should they hand over, Omar al-Bashir to the ICC, then that will mean a lot of these generals will be following suit, and I'm not sure that is something that they'll be willing, a sacrifice they'll be willing to make. So they'd rather just stay in that, list, on the blacklist as a country that is sponsoring terrorism in the world. And of course, that will continue to hurt the image of Sudan in so many ways. So, but we know that the side of Prime Minister, they might want to do that, and they really they want to create new alliances. They want to create new diplomatic ties, especially with the Western world. But a few of these other things that they're not in agreement with the military side might continue to hamper their progress in terms of how Sudan is opened up to the Western world there. So the U.S. has said it will think about it, but those, it has been dangling that as a carrot, saying if you want us to remove you from the blacklist, then ultimately you have to hand over Omar al-Bashir to the ICC, and on top of that you have to compensate the victims. So Sudan said it will compensate the victims, no big deal. But it is a big deal because Sudan does not have that kind of money. I don't have the exact figure, but it's a lot of money. Maybe tomorrow I'll come with that here, and we can see how Sudan can compensate that. So the World Health Organization now is sending out a warning to all of us in the continent, and they're saying as much as Africa has been lucky in terms of the cases that we've been reporting right now, we are just nearing, I think, 600,000, or we are there. I think, do I have the figures from morning? I've forgotten. I didn't come with them right now. But we are just about there. But compared to other places in the world, we are doing relatively well in terms of the spread of COVID-19 and, of course, the death rate. You can't even compare that with what is happening in the world. But there has been a concern, especially in South Africa, where the figures now have kept increasing. And the past week, it has gone up to 30%. Hey, even here in Kenya. Look, we're not that safe because we have also registered an increase in 31%. And dear Madagascar, where we thought, oh, that is where our help was supposed to come from, Madagascar has registered 50% in terms of increase of the cases, and Zambia 57, Namibia 69. This is according to World Health Organization statistics. So they're saying if Africa is not very careful, if we don't adhere to these rules and measures that have been spelled out by the World Health Organization, by our different health ministries in our different countries, if we don't pay attention to what we're being told, then they're saying what we're seeing in South Africa will be just a child's play. They're saying the figures will go really, up, and we're likely to see a lot of deaths coming from the continent. So I think on our part is just to urge all of us out there to be careful, to be our brother's keeper, to be mindful, to just wear a mask when you're in public, sanitize, wash your hands. Don't go to these house parties and birthdays and tea parties, and don't. I know there are restaurants across the world are open, but don't go sitting there with somebody, a friend of yours you've not seen in quite a while. You don't know where they've been. You don't know if they're safe or not. And even a lot of these establishments, they might not have the enough space for that social distancing. So be mindful. I mean, for once, be selfish, and just be mindful of yourself. And at the same time, when you do that, you'll be protecting the other person there. So if this warning here by World Health Organization is anything to go by, they're saying what you're seeing in South Africa, unfortunately, is just a precursor. And if you've been watching anything from South Africa just about 2 weeks ago, there are leading, towns and cities there that are now preparing. There has been a preparation of mass graves. About 1.5 million, mass graves are being prepared there in South Africa. Of course, the death toll is not astronomers like that. And so we were wondering, why is it? But perhaps they've seen the projections and the rate at which, the coronavirus is spreading there. So now we're being told, can we watch what is happening in South Africa? And can we learn about what is happening and see how is it that we can prevent, us, the rest of us, from getting to that very high infection and that a high mortality there. All right? So please, be your brother's keeper by taking care of yourself so that you're able to curb the spread of COVID-19. So can we now just talk about this official in Nigeria who fainted while going through an answering session in Parliament? So this person here, I don't know why. You tell me what you think. Maybe he was just, maybe the clothes he wore were a bit tight on the neck, so it was constricting his breathing system. Maybe he was not feeling well. Maybe he was genuinely not okay. But what I know is Nigerians were not very amused by what was happening, what they watched yesterday. This is after a Nigerian official collapsed on live television while answering questions from lawmakers over the mismanagement of funds allocated to a development commission in the country's oil-rich region. Now, Daniel Pondey, that is his name, the acting managing director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, slumped forward in his chair, like he was sitting like this, listening, and then before you know it, he went and he was quiet, his eyes closed and all that. So he slumped forward in his chair less than an hour into his session in front of a committee in the House of Representatives. Following his collapse, and several officials in the room went to his aid, one trying to, prevent him from possibly choking. Others were fanning him, while others just poured water over his head, and then he gained consciousness, and then after that he was seen telling stories with his rescuers, all right, in quotes. Now, the committee eventually hurriedly dismissed him as some members who are heard asking that an ambulance be called in. Of course, an ambulance wasn't called in. He was helped out of the auditorium with an aid of a policeman and also 2 other men. Now, the NDDC, that is the Niger Delta Development Commission, has been the subject of massive mismanagement, that reports in recent weeks. And the management, however, insists that all expenditure was justified, including a sizable sum for COVID-19. Now, President Buhari last week commented on the reports, stressing that his government will do all it takes to uproot saboteurs of his development in the region. So President Buhari is saying he has been doing very well. His track record in terms of development, in this region of Nigeria has been fantastic, except there has been a few characters like this one here, Daniel Pondey of the Niger Delta Development Commission. He's the managing director, who has been seen as saboteurs against President Buhari's dream and development agenda, in Nigeria, and specifically this region of Nigeria. So he's saying his government will do all it takes and will uproot people like this. It's quite interesting there. So this person decided, he was going to faint. Like I said there earlier, maybe he had worn something tight on the neck, so that was constricting his respiratory system, or he was just not feeling well prior to going there. Or he felt the heat was too much and it's just a lot for him, and he decided, you know what, I need an escape plan. I hope, let me not joke with matters health, but I'm just hoping that was not the case. But Nigerians are not amused at all. Go on Twitter and see what they've been writing there, so it's quite something. I hope that he's okay. Daniel Pondey, the managing director of the Niger Delta Development Commission there. I hope that he's doing fine. But after these people came and rescued him, he went back to, he seemed to be okay, and he was talking and, telling stories, and that session was called off. He was in very good spirits after that. I don't know why they did not bring him back there to conclude the session, the questioning. So anyway, I wish him well, and I hope that he's okay. Now let's just jump over to Cameroon, and the leader of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, Maurice Kamto, has called on the Cameroonian to use all specific means to impede any future elections in the country if the crises of Northwest and Southwest regions are not solved, as well as the reform of the electoral system. Now we know Maurice Kamto, he's the official opposition leader in Cameroon, and last year he had been taken to jail for organizing some protests to protest the elections that happened, I think, in 2018, where President Paul Biya was given another 7-year mandate there. And so he was released, I think, he was released after that national dialogue happened. Yes, I remember earlier. The dialogue happened late September to early October, and he was released just after the dialogues. I think the last day of the dialogue, Maurice Kamto was released. And, he's been the one who's been on the forefront there, leading the opposition in speaking against some of the things that he feels are not right there in Cameroon. So even as these national dialogues are happening last year, of course, to find a solution over the stalemate and the crisis that has continued between President Paul Biya and the Anglophone region, but also Maurice Kamto has been part part of the people who have been agitating for change there in Cameroon. So it was quite interesting that even he was not part of the national dialogue that was happening, which I think if President Paul Biya was really actually genuine about finding a solution and a peaceful solution for that, the official opposition leader of the country should have been present in that meeting, but Mr. Maurice Kamto was not. He was in jail and released the last day. I remember it was on a Friday, was it? The last day when the talks were ending, that is when he was released from prison there. So he is the leader of the Cameroon Renaissance movement there. So he's been through so much in the hands of President Paul Biya. So now he's coming out and he's urging the whole of Cameroon not to participate in an election until President Paul Biya is able to address the crisis in the Anglophone region. And I don't know if that call will be heeded at all, but that is what he's asking. He's asking Cameroonians not to be part of that, what he terms as very sham elections there. Let me just read some of your comments here, and I'd like for you to tell me. Okay, Kiptanui, thank you for joining. Aikuku, you're saying you're watching from the United States of Biafra. All right. Okay, and let me see. You also say the MD has looted a lot of money from his office. He pretended to faint. He is a big looter of the fund. Okay. And who else? All right, so you're saying, what you're saying here is that this person was just playing sick. You don't think he was sick for real? He was playing sick. All right, so he fainted, while going through the questioning in Parliament there, and he decided, you know what, perhaps this heat is just too much, and a lot of these questions I'm being asked, I don't have answers to. I'm not saying that is what happened, but the guy fainted, and Nigerians had a lot, I'll actually say, to that, and they were not very amused because I think they were expecting to get a lot of information and some clarification from this official. So for him to have fainted there, I think some Nigerians were quite disappointed. But maybe he was truly sick. Ikuku is saying he was never sick at all. How do you know that, sir? He was acting up to be sick. Yeah, I was just reading the manner in which that was being explained, and then after that, the session was called off, and he was seen to be having I don't want to say a good time, but in quite a normal spirits and just having conversations with the people who rescued him, so. All right, I don't want to read too much into it, so Ikuku, don't encourage me, but thank you so much for watching. So this story, you're saying you know him personally very well. All right, then I rest my case. Then. Thank you so much. This story of South Sudan over here, where 2 High Court employees on Monday, that was yesterday, were held at a gunpoint and threatened with death by a senior National Security Service officer in Juba. Now, the incident involving a Brigadier General of the National Security Service, is he even still in office as we speak right now, this Brigadier, and officials working as chief registrars, took place right at the court premises in the court. The impunity of it all. That is like the contempt of that's contempt of court, no? All right, let's read through. Now, according to police, the general, who has been identified as Agok, stormed into the office of the Registrar of Land and ordered that his name be recognized as the owner of a disputed land in Juba. Now, Gum's security guards reportedly held a gun on the head of the Registrar of Land. Criminal. And General Gum is claiming ownership of the land at Juba Nabari, an area popularly known as Thongping, near Juba International Airport. Okay, that is a lucrative land, but the Registrar of Land reportedly refused to change the title deed without proper documents to back up Gum's land ownership claims. So you just walk into the land's office and decide, that is my piece of land, please, I need the papers right now, and you're holding a gun at the head of this official. What kind of What is that? What kind of banana republic is there in South Sudan? Is there anybody that is law-abiding in South Sudan? What is happening? Why would a whole brigadier general, you go there and you're threatening somebody's life, literally, and you're ordering them to do something that is out of order? You are from the discipline forces, and I keep saying here, and I know some people sometimes might not agree with me totally, but the disciplined forces we have in South Sudan, they're not really disciplined because they're not gone through a whole army, military training, disciplined forces training like the regular army of any country. So no wonder somebody still has this militia mentality and they think they can just have their way. He showed up to this Registrar of Lands office. He does not even have the proper documentation to back up his claim. And yet he wants this title deed to be changed. There is something called the law, and there is following the right channels of the law, and there is doing things in accordance to the standard procedure. What makes you think there, Brigadier, that you are above the law and you'll just walk into a government office with a gun and put a gun on someone's head and they're supposed to do what you want them to do? And I want to pray and hope, which might be, might not even be the case, but I want to hope that this person is not even serving in the military anymore. And he's perhaps facing some discipline, something there. I'm hoping he's not serving, because this is a very dangerous person. These are very dangerous hands to leave guns on. And these are the kind of people who even keep, inciting the incident and the killings we see in South Sudan. There's no telling, because if he can walk in a whole government office and do that in broad daylight, breaking the law, what else can such a person do, in their privacy? So this is very worrying. I'm just hoping this officer is still not serving in the military there in South Sudan. Unfortunately, I've not read anywhere where he has been reprimanded. I think he's still serving. So President Salva Kiir, come on now, you have to handle such people. You cannot let such behaviors just, he cannot get away with that. That is not right. So Matt Ferson, you're saying this guy is a student of Dino Malaya and pretending to fade. All right, so you are, Matt, so you are agreeing with what Ikuko Mono, is it? Monso, is it? Monso has been saying here that this person, this government official, Daniel Podey, the managing director at Niger Delta Development Commission, that he pretended to have fainted, because when I was reading that story, a lot of it did not make a lot of sense to me. But I said, perhaps he was not feeling well, or perhaps the tie was too tight, or perhaps, I don't know, perhaps the questions were just too much and he developed an anxiety and a panic or something. I was just trying to understand, why, what could happen, what could be the problem. But you guys are here saying, he's just he was playing sick. All right, so then this is a very interesting story that I'll be following, and next time he appears before that committee, I really want to see what will happen next. But you see, if at all there are some questions he was asked and perhaps some documents that he did not have, now he will have a very good opportunity to go, come back with some supporting documents or something, It's very interesting, but not quite. Okay, so now as we speak, the African Union has taken on the mediation between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia over the Nile River. We know Egypt is not very happy because Ethiopia has started filling the Grand Renaissance Dam there, and Ethiopia had said it will wait until July during the heavy rain season for it to start filling this dam. And it appears satellite images have shown that Ethiopia indeed has started filling, but Ethiopia is saying it has not literally started doing that. So that is, I think, the spillage or the overflow from the river Nile there that is finding its way. But on the other side, Sudan and Egypt, they have noted that since this dam has started, filling up, then, the water that goes to those countries have become very less. Has reduced in terms of the flow, and it is affecting how they're receiving the waters up there. So, okay, so now, of course, the previous mediations have not been very successful. So African Union and some other African head of states have come in to try to find a solution to this, and that will include the African Union chairperson right now, also the African President Cyril Ramaphosa, and they're saying they want to see what the progress is so far, and whether there could be other new paths that could be pursued. I don't know what other path they would convince Ethiopia to pursue after putting up over 4 billion worth of investment, and this dam will go in a long way in benefiting its economy, its power sector, its industries, which now will be powered very well, and the rest of Ethiopia. I don't know how they seek to convince Ethiopia not to fill up this dam. I don't know how they intend to do that, because no. So Iku, you're asking, we don't have any Biafra update today. What did Nnamdi Kanu do yesterday? Oh, you know, the close friend of President Buhari who died yesterday. What is his name? Is it Issa? So he died, and Nnamdi Kanu was saying that he is one of the people who had said that they would Biafra referendum will happen over their dead bodies. So he was saying, well, they're dying before, because they thought they will live not to see Biafra a referendum happen. He's one of the people who had sworn that is something that will not happen in his lifetime. So Nnamdi was saying, oh well, he's now gone, so perhaps the dream to have the referendum is even much closer now. So I read that, he tweeted that. So yeah. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully we can meet here tomorrow and look at other news making headlines across the continent. Thank you for your company. Thank you for your participation. Ikoko Mnonso, thank you so much. And the rest of you, Marge, and the rest of you, I appreciate your time. Who is that? Vicky Asena, thank you so much, and I appreciate your time also, Kiptanui, and the rest of you. I'll see you here tomorrow with other news making headlines across the continent. Please stay safe. Go on and wear your mask if you're in public. If you don't have to go to anybody's house, please don't. Or anywhere in public, please don't. And sanitize wherever you can, but always wash your hands, all right? No shaking of hands, no hugging. No cheek, pegs or anything like that. Let's leave that for 2025, if that is when, Corona will be done. World Health Organization has not said that. I'm just, but I'm just saying, let's just try to keep safe wherever you are, because we still need all of us here, to continue talking and building Africa, all right? So we need all of you to be alive and safe, okay? So I'll see you here tomorrow. My name is Miriam Oguta. Very good afternoon to you.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.